So today we are in week 7 of A Healthy Mind and Body. And this week's discussion is herbs and prescription medicines. So just to again connect to the wholeness of the topic, we've been talking about how disease manifests within your body. And so when we can detect it, when we can go to the doctor and we can detect it, it's already manifested into the physical, the third dimension. But imbalances are detectable way before it manifests into the physical. And so we've been learning that imbalances occur in the spiritual, mental, and emotional body as well. And so, of course, that's going to come back into play as we move forward with this week's lesson. A couple of weeks ago, or maybe last week, I introduced to you a little bit about prescription medicine and herbs as I was talking about the levels um, of existence that we operate on. And so regular medicines that you can just go to the pharmacy or whatever, that's on the cellular level. And the cellular level is something we learn about in biology and chemistry. And then these levels get more and more infinitesimal, they get smaller. And so within those cells, there is um, a whole different form of life in itself in the way that the cells operate or in the way that the subatomic particles operate. They have their own little lives in their own worlds. And so, as I was saying then, the prescription medicines is helping you on a cellular level. And so when you move to smaller and smaller levels, subatomic particles, and you go to physics class and you take quantum physics, and now you're dealing with the things that you can't really see with the naked eye, we get to something called the quantum physics string theory. And I discussed with you all that there are three things in Ayurveda, we call them doshas, and these are some of the simplest forms that we can detect imbalance on. And so moving forward with what happens with the prescription drugs that we have as opposed to the herbs that we can take. My son asked me a question, and it's funny because I thought the same thing to myself many years ago, and I remember asking somebody else the same question. And this is when I was first getting into holistic wellness and even just opening up my mind to the possibility that everything that I've known in regards to health and wellness, you know, may not necessarily be something that's creating health and wellness. And so I was having a conversation with my children's father. But anywho, Jackson asked me, if everything was here, isn't everything organic? And so, we in a grocery store, we looking at fruits and vegetables and things organic. We looking at the quality of materials and everything. So I had to kind of take him on a mind trip to understand why that's not the case, because I felt the same way. Nothing new came to earth. Nobody dropped anything new down. Everything that was here, and everything that was made is made of something that was already here. And so, um, of course, going on to look at the chemistry of things and how we can manipulate and chemically synthesize things. We in a world now where you can 3D print things. And so technology has really advanced us very, very, very far. And so when we look at the chemical composition of prescription medicine, for example, where did it come from? How did we decide that putting these chemicals together was going to solve a problem? And so if we go back in history, this is like if you look at the history of like penicillin and how it's made from mold, and there were trade secrets. So back when we were like in war and we are fighting over territory and stuff, it wasn't always just about territory. It was about resources and knowledge as well. And I may have it wrong. My friend Mel, she's not on tonight. She would know because we kind of went through one of these classes together where we really talked about this. But the gist of it is that um, penicillin was created in Africa. And one of the trade secrets, this was something Germany picked up and they moved to the United States, was how to create a pill, how to, create penicillin itself. And so that was like a war trade secret, if you get the gist of where I'm going with that. And so they picked that up from other civilizations that were finding ways, innovative ways to treat themselves with the plants and the herbs and leaves, flowers, whatever it is that we have around. And we still do that. And so I'll mention this to you. A lot of times, like students at universities, when they're in science disciplines, biology disciplines, they do things, they go on internships, they go on mission trips. All of these things are designed really by our, I don't necessarily want to say government, but just like the American society. You go out, you go to these other countries, you study the people. What is their health like? What kind of things are they eating every day? What type of things are they doing every day? Oh, this population, they don't get diabetes. Oh, this population, they don't get cancer. What are they eating? And then we come back with that research and it's like, oh, if you eat such and such, or if you do such and such. Now, like I said last week, a lot of times we get real juiced up, but it's important to take into consideration where you are, the climate you're in, the environment you're in when you're looking at what you need to take for, your health and wellness. Because, I can't count how many times somebody has mentioned, oh, if you just eat this tropical fruit or you just eating this. And I'm like, you don't live in South America. Like you gonna import that in every day. Like you think if that's was balancing your body, then you probably do well to move to a climate that is more humid. And so just making the mental connections of what makes sense. A lot of it is really common sense. It's just that we've not had to think about it because we've always had a system in place. If you get sick, you don't have to think too hard about it. People went to school to fix that for you. You just go to the doctor and you just go see them. And I hate to come off as such a conspiracy theorist because I'll tie it back in later. I'm definitely not against prescription drugs, but just so you can understand like the evolution of where they came from and why we do things the way that we do. Okay. And so if we're testing, if people, scientists are testing to see what naturally occurring things help our body and our vitality, how do they find that out? They sit with other people, different indigenous groups, what they eat, what they do. They're connecting back to those old ancient remedies, and then they're taking it and they're synthesizing it into a pill, and they're adding things to help it be localized for a specific area or to help its efficacy, to make it work harder or make it work quicker. And so like all of those other chemical components, you know, although the chemicals had to come from the earth, as I explained to Jackson, it's still manipulated. It's still not in its best quality or value. So let me give you an example. If you go to Macy's and you buying a nice suit or dress and it may have a nice name brand, and that name brand may be known for its quality, and you may get this suit and you can keep it for years and it's still good, it's not fading, this is a good material. Or you can go and you can get some reduced fibers. It's not going to be as sturdy. The material's not going to have the same quality. You may wash it, it may shrink, the colors may fade, whatever the case. You might have ordered it from Shein. So we understand the quality and value. And it's funny because bringing up my kids again, they be like, man, was everything made in China? I'm like, China has some really cheap labor. And in that, when they're printing Louis Vuitton or whoever else, there's always some knockoffs or there's always some slightly altered pieces that don't make the cut that you may be able to get on discount. And then there's ways again to create these same versions of things with products that are not, um, as high of a quality, just like you can get a diamond of different qualities or, different crystals of different qualities. And so when we look at what happens with prescription medicine, that the original is the herb. That's what really existed first. Those herbs, that's amongst the trees and the leaves and the things, fruits here for our health and for our wellness and for our food. And now they are a part of um, the American economy as a means of income and revenue because we get a lot of our money from the pharmaceutical industry. So it's almost like the United States profits off of us being sick. And so I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to make it everything about a conspiracy theory. So I'll go ahead and at this point interject that modern medicine is good. If I was to get in a car crash today, I would absolutely want you guys to rush me to the hospital and I would want whatever drugs they were going to give me and whatever blood transfusion was necessary. Like in emergency purpose, the United States healthcare system is awesome. And so when we think about preventative care, though, it's not as necessary and it doesn't necessarily speak to prevention. It's already there. And so now you're just looking at, well, what I'm going to do? Am I going to take this pill? Am I going to do this thing? And of course, the trouble with a lot of the prescription medicines are the side effects, because when these medicines are tested on a group, they're coming up with this based on the average person. Everybody knows, we've all heard a commercial. If you or a loved one has ever had XYZ to happen while you were taking ABC drug, you can be entitled to funds because the FDA approved it and then they went back and unapproved it because they may have did 5 years of studies on the drug, and then when they start putting it out there for the masses, yeah, they still keeping up with the studies. I was a part of a study group for birth control once upon a time where I got this birth control that was approved, but what stage of approval was it in if you guys are paying me and constantly checking up on me and asking me for feedback? So, you know, the idea that doctors are practicing medicine is true. You learn so much, so it's nothing against, like I said, that medical field or industry in any way, but it is a little bit of an experiment. And so let's look at a person that is at a place where there's a prognosis. Okay, there's that. I'm not saying that you have high blood pressure. I'm saying that you're at risk for high blood pressure. So you may be at that point where you don't necessarily need to be medicated yet, or maybe you could be on some lower dose of medication. So like at that stage, you may have an option to say, okay, well, let me do something different in my diet, or, maybe even take a herbal remedy to create that balance before that specific thing manifests. But then there's some people that's just gonna say, give me the drug. I'd rather just take that pill every day to regulate. And so herbs is something that's going to be a slower turnaround time in most cases compared to prescription medicine, because prescription medicine is designed to target specific things or speed up the process, etc. And so when we look at herbs and how they work, it's very commonplace now for people to be, just hear something on YouTube or see something on TV like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take this. Oh, I heard ashwagandha was good. I'm gonna take this herb. And there are some single herbs that you can take like that, but even a holistic practitioner such as myself, like we do herbal compounds, because when we're looking at herbs, say I give you a herb that is going to help aid your digestion, and a lot of times things like, ginger might help aid your digestion. But what if you have really bad heat intolerance and you have inflammation, you have all these different things in your body? That's not going to be the best thing for me to give you just that ginger. Now, I may be able to give you that ginger and give you something else like some coriander with the ginger, and then maybe that'll calm down and that'll balance. So that'll be better for you to take those two things together than to take one thing by itself. And so saying that to say, the area of herbal remedies and medicines, it should be taken just as seriously as just like the pharmaceutical industry when they're adding and doing different things, because there is much to consider. I'll say that. And I did start this journey off myself with just reading about a single thing and doing that and reading about this and doing that. But when we're talking about you need to do this routinely for over a period of time so that you can get the results, so that you can balance, it is nice to go see someone who specializes in that area that can write you a prescription, for lack of better words. And I say it like that, and I'll tell you guys this because maybe this is something you can have in your mind if it ever comes up. Michigan is not a health freedom state. There's only 11 health freedom states. Um, all states don't really support natural medicine or holistic medicine like that. Michigan is one of the ones that's kind of like a middle state, because there's a level of people who are not, people who are, and then people there who are there are certain laws to protect um, holistic professionals. So if I practice in the state of Michigan, even though I'm licensed in California, I can have my own practice because they are a health freedom state and I'm a healthcare practitioner. In Michigan, I'm not a healthcare practitioner. I'm a health coach and I can make suggestions to you, suggestions that you should take to your doctor and get approval for, or I could be like at risk for like a lawsuit or anything of that nature. And so, why is this so? Even just bringing this up, a lot of it is because the United States makes so much money from healthcare and the pharmaceutical industries that is to their advantage to keep you, like I said, on these different drugs and not always fully aware. And so what happens when you become a health freedom state is, what if you choose that you just want to have preventative care covered, you know, preventative health care, and it had to be covered under your insurance for you to go see a holistic practitioner, because now that's not the case. Most people, if you're seeing a holistic practitioner, you're paying out of pocket for it. And so a lot of people are even duped into supporting this system just because of, the health care that they get from their job and what that health care will actually cover and support. And so I don't want to go on too much of a tangent about that. But getting back to some of the differences with the prescription medicine and herbal remedies. So, prescription medicine, it is designed to, it has blockers in it for certain things. So, for example, if you take some Tylenol, you take a leave, because I'm counting all of the over the counter stuff too. If you take these things, it's not necessarily that it's making your head feel better. What it's doing is blocking the signal that tells you that it hurts. It still feels exactly the same. You're just not getting that. You're just not receiving that impulse or trigger anymore. And so for me, through childbirth, that was probably like the only major time that I've been in the hospital and was prescribed like a high dose pain pill. And I take it for the first day, but I don't like the numbing. I don't like to not feel, because I want to feel what's going on in my body. I want to feel if something in my womb don't feel right, or if I'm taking this for a knee injury, or somebody's taking it for a knee injury, for example, and you're on these heavy pain meds and you don't realize that something is not right, or an infection has set in, or whatever, things that you would feel if it wasn't for those blockers that are a part of that, pain medicine. So these are just things to be considered. But in America, in the way that we've come up through this society, we do a lot of things that defy logic if you just take the time to think about it. And although it may have its benefits, I'm always on my ice tangent, but everybody grew up where, oh, you get hurt, ice it. Just put some ice on it. We'll put ice on everything. And one thing that I learned about ice is, yeah, it will reduce swelling, but ice numbs the pain, slows the healing. Because when we ice the area, we're not allowing for the blood flow, but we need the blood to flow through that area to actually heal, because that's what's bringing in the nutrients and taking out the nutrients. So a lot of things that we ice, we do better to put a heating pad on, but a heating pad is not going to provide the numbing relief that ice has. And so we do a lot of things that it's more focused to the instant gratification than the long-term effects of what's going on. And that's just the way that we've been conditioned in the American society. And so everybody, like I said, don't have time to sit here and think about these things. But, that's why you tune in to Ask Ashley, because I'll tell you and you won't forget. And so the habits and routines that we talked about with daily routines, usually when you're on a prescription medicine, um, if you're on it for a short amount of time, if it's not something that you know are taking on and off, like pain medication, because you're just taking it when there's pain. But if you're on the prescription medicine, say for blood pressure or something like that, or you're on a diuretic or something like that, you know that every day, at whatever time the doctor said, you do this becomes a part of your routine, and you do it because you have this faith and you have this belief that if you do this, whatever it is you're trying to regulate or heal is going to be better. Okay. Herbs work the exact same way, where it is something that you're going to have to add to your life, where you're going to have to do it, every day, at the same time, and, with in routine and with consistency, and maybe even over a longer period of time. Now, when we look at what motivates us to create these routines that are necessary, well, usually the prognosis or the diagnosis, which makes it so hard to just say, hey, well, I detect this imbalance, and based on what I'm detecting in your body, you know, you're at the early stages of, autoimmune issue. And you'd be like, oh, okay. And I'm like, well, this is what you can take for it. But because nobody has full on told you you have MS, you may or may not do what you're supposed to do. You may or may not take the herbs twice a day that's recommended to you. Because a lot of times, by the time we're taking the medicine, we're doing it more so out of fear. And so that's a lot also why we don't always engage in preventative care. When we think about preventative care, one of the main groups that was promoting this idea of preventative care, well, is dentists. Brush twice a day, floss your teeth so you don't get cavities. And I don't know about any of y'all, but I've had plenty of times back in the day where my teeth weren't ever cleaner than right before I went to the dentist. And so, um, taking that time every day, though, that's what was supposed to be done. Or right after you leave the dentist and you may find out, oh, you got a, onset of a cavity or something coming. Now, all of a sudden, your dental hygiene routine is of the utmost importance, and you didn't went into the store and you can grab. Okay, guys, I don't know what happened. My computer just completely blanked out and came back. Are you still able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Toya. Awesome. So yes, as I was saying, hopefully this is where I left off for you guys as well. But preventative care is, we'll get in a routine of doing something. Like I said, if we just leave the dentist and we have an onset of a cavity or something like that, then all of a sudden now we are, brushing and flossing more regularly. And even still, we may only keep the habit up for so long, because a lot of these things that we do not fully integrate into our lifestyle. Now, back to the herbs, like yes, you can be prescribed a herb. Okay, guys, I'm sorry. I don't know why on earth it keeps doing that. It just kind of keeps cutting out. I've never had this issue before. It may be an issue with Zoom. I don't know. It just kind of keeps cutting out. But with being on herbs, I'm gonna try to watch it and see if I can catch exactly what's going on. It's gonna Okay, hopefully this is the last time. I don't know. Fingers crossed, y'all. But the point that I want to make, because just in case it keeps doing this, then I'm not going to keep popping off and coming back on. Um, Preventative care and integrating herbal remedies into your lifestyle is easy. Even if you run a prescription for herbs that you may just be on for, a couple of weeks because a practitioner had you trying to, fix a major balance, herbs are something that you could just add to your food. And so this is how it can become a part of everyday life, because once I tell you this is going to be good for cooling, or this is going to be good for inflammation, for example, turmeric. Turmeric is getting like turmeric and ginger is so many research studies. Geez, guys, again, I'm sorry. So tell me, somebody unmute. What's happening to your screen? Because my screen is, you guys are going away and coming back up.
It basically just keeps showing you leaving and it stops recording when you leave. And then when you pop back on it,
It just
just
starts
starts recording.
recording. Okay.
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm not doing anything different than I normally do. I don't know if it's the service or the connection, but anywho, what I was saying was you can actually put the herbs in your food. You can cook with these spices regularly. And I was saying that turmeric and ginger have gotten a lot of attention, especially among scientists and herbalists who are looking at what we need to do for our health. And there's so many journal research studies on just those two alone. And so with herbs and preventative care, it doesn't always have to be something where it's just like you're on for a particular period of time. Integrating it into your lifestyle is easy if you integrate it into your cooking. And then also a lot of herbs can be taken as tea. So if you are a tea drinker, that's another way to get these herbs without having to overthink the process or take a supplement. And then herbs, they're not always like prescription medicine where it's something nasty that's encapsulated. Like you can crush up herbs, you can add them to food. A lot of people add herbs to like breakfast hot breakfast cereal like oatmeal or porridge or whatever you may have. And cinnamon, for example, is a good digestive herb. Pepper, for example, is a good digestive herb. So when you have an indigestion, if you don't have any inflammation or anything in your body and you can tolerate spices, spices may help, with the indigestion. And so those are just things to think about as you get new information or you want to incorporate herbs into your lifestyle. Yes, Toya, I'm going to unmute you or you can unmute yourself.
Okay, I had a question about turmeric. So when cooking with it or any like seed or spice for that matter, does the heat alter like any of the properties or
Okay,
does
so
it matter?
yeah, it actually does matter. And I'm happy that you asked that because one thing that we do, I guess maybe I should speak for myself, but a common thing that I see is how we add seasoning to the food. We'll prepare the food and then we'll just add the seasoning to the food or add the seasoning as a finish. And really, that's not the best way for the seasonings. And so, what should be done, and you'll see this in like a lot of Indian dishes, or in a lot of other countries, not necessarily just India, but the spices are cooked into the oil. And so, turmeric, for example, and curry and ginger, especially with some of those dishes or Indian dishes, what happens is they'll put the oil and the seasoning together and cook that together. And the reason that that's prepared together like that is because you need the oil to digest your food to keep things lubricated so that you can get through the digestive tract. So oils and butters are not to be feared, even though we look at it that way because it's like, oh, cholesterol. We don't want to have oils and well, the way that we partake in the oils and butters may in fact clog arteries because it's not spiced. The spices help the digestion. And so when you cook the oils with the spices, the oils are not as bad anymore as they were on their own. And then the efficacy of the spices is better because they're cooked into the oil so they can move throughout your body. So like the same thing that I was saying when we would pair two herbs together so that they can balance one another. When you're cooking, you make like a little roux first. And so I try to do this in everything that I cook if I can. I made some soup. So with the soup, I did put a little ghee, clarified butter, and my spices and everything together, and I made like a thick roux stock type of thing. And then I put my vegetables in, and then I add water. But those spices had cooked up in the butter and everything first, and it got to really sit in for a good amount of time. But some things you want altered, and so some herbs and stuff to add heat is a good catalyst for it to work. I don't know of a whole lot of spices that you can't add heat to. I don't that could be, I guess, looked into on an individual basis, but the heat is a good thing. And I'll bring up another point because when we talk about eating fruits and vegetables, and we have this idea of, okay, this is healthy, I'm going to go eat a salad, and America has it in their mind that raw vegetables equate a healthy thing to do, and that's not the case. That's not the case for everybody, because a lot of the imbalances that we deal with are imbalances that carry the qualities of cold, rough, dry. Those qualities are also the qualities of raw vegetables. And so cooking your vegetables is good. The coming up with fire, I'm thinking back to when we were cavemen, y'all. So the idea of fire was a good conscious decision to make these things more malleable and more digestible, easy to go through our system. And so, if you've been sick or something and then you decide you're gonna just like snack on some celery and some carrots, like that's really hard, and it's hard on your digestive system. Depending on what may have been going on, if you had gastrointestinal issues, for example, like you got leaky gut syndrome, like that is just making it worse. And so the addition of heat most of the time is not a bad time. I mean, it's not a bad thing. Is that kind of answer? Toya?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, I was walking back to my phone. Yes, ma'am.
All
It
good.
did. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, just making sure. So yes, now about taking prescription medication and herbs. Another thing that I want to talk about, and this probably be like close to the last point here. Um, it doesn't have to be one or the other when it comes to prescription medication and herbal remedies. A lot of time, what we see in the world is we see extremists, and that's why I said I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I am, but I'm not trying to be that way about this thing, because it doesn't help to be on the extreme. We'll get people that's just like, oh no, I can't go to the hospital. I can't take no prescription medicine. And then they cut their life short because they don't take advantage of something that can help them, where even with the side effects, the risk may be more worth it. Because as I said, these herbs, they're going to work in a deeper way. They're going to help the imbalances, but they were designed for preventative care. They were not designed for treatment after the fact. So it's having to work real hard after you've already got the diagnosis. So you may need to go ahead and you take whatever prescription is there. But once you're on the prescriptions, you can work with somebody, a holistic wellness consultant such as myself. You can work to also take herbal remedies. So if you're saying, okay, I got to be on this high blood pressure pill or whatever, I got to take this or that pill, and you want to ultimately wean yourself off of it, you can begin to take the herbs to balance that. And then when you go in with your doctor, if the levels are better, you say, hey, I was thinking maybe I could try a reduced dosage or do this. And then you just kind of monitor it and see how you go, because as the herbs add balance in, then you can, like I said, wean yourself off of the experience. But you definitely can take both, but nobody wants to have a whole pill tray and then a whole herbal cabinet of stuff you just have to do every day. So you just do little by little. You work on what you can, especially if you're taking prescription medicine for more than one thing. Then you may just decide to do herbs just to fix this issue. And usually what herbs is going to fix all issues for real anyway. It's not going to just do one thing, because it is designed to help balance you. It's nothing a part of it that's creating an imbalance. And if it was going to, like I said, your practitioner would have coupled the herb with another herb to help keep things balanced. But you can absolutely do both. And weaning is good. And a healthcare practitioner should never tell you not to take your prescription medicines that you've been prescribed. They should never tell you to do that. It should always be, a relationship with, you, that person, and your doctor, and being very respectful to what's going on. Because again, we have things like lawsuits and negligence and everything should something go wrong. So our number one thing that we would never ask a person to do is stop taking blood pressure medication specifically. And so because it's such a delicate thing. And then even with that, there are studies out that say that licorice actually is bad for people with high blood pressure. It worsens the issue. And even though it's not um a big issue. Like nobody's going to take licorice in that quantity for it to be such an issue. But these are things that you have to know. And so a lot of times when we're doing our independent studies about, oh, I heard licorice do this or do that, and you didn't take into consideration that, you know, you have high blood pressure, you have this other disease or ailment that may not work in conjunction with that. Like that's why it's good to, you know, seek professional guidance even with the herbs, because it's all about balance. And so you have to know how that balance works. And so I'm looking at my little notes here, and I actually think that I've touched on all of the points that I wanted to touch. Does anybody have any questions? I'm not going to hold us long today. Going once, going twice. Okay. So just to kind of wrap it up again, herbs, this is something that's going to help create balance, and it should definitely be incorporated into your lifestyle, even though you can take some in larger quantities for specific periods of time for specific things. But ultimately, this helps the balance on very infinitesimal levels. And so once we're on the cellular level and the illness has manifested, a prescription medicine may be necessary, but you should always be consulting both your primary care physician and your holistic wellness consultant. You know, if you have if you're on prescription medicine and you have some different changes to make. But if you are in good health and you don't go to the doctor, or you don't need to go often, and you just do see somebody that is a holistic practitioner, then it's absolutely okay to just go through different herbal things and, you know, try different things and change different things. When you're not sick or like battling some specific sickness and we looking at herbs, then you can get into the fun stuff. You can get into, you know, things that have anti-aging properties, or things that are more, you know, in relation to like skincare or anything. You know, we love our cosmetic industry and our beauty industry. And so there is a myriad of different recipes, hibiscus, things you can do as tonics, internally and externally. And so herbs are ultimately like a really cool thing to work with. But prescription medicine, like I said, it has its importance. The Western healthcare system definitely does a good job and it serves its place, but it just doesn't always know. And I'm thinking of another example that I kind of want to leave you with, because a person that was going through some cardiovascular issues got the advice that they need to lose weight, and that they were going to have to be possibly looking at having back surgery. And so when we do our studies, we don't always tell people that they need to lose weight. And I bring that up because people can be at varying levels of strength. Just because someone is carrying a lot of weight doesn't mean that they have stamina. And so if a person has weight, but they don't have stamina and they lose weight, how are they losing weight? What have they done? They've changed their diet. They eating salads now. They skipping meals now. What are they doing to lose the weight? I guarantee you it's a high probability that whatever it is that they're doing to lose weight is adding weakness to a person that already doesn't have much stamina. And so we could be looking at that like an elderly person that's having to go in for surgery that has weight on them, versus, you know, somebody in their early 20s that may have weight on them, but they still have a lot of stamina and vitality. But when we go to the doctor, it's a blanket. Oh, if your body mass index is this much or you this much, I cannot do this thing for you until you lose weight. And then that becomes your primary focus, to lose weight. And that's not the best thing for your body, because if you don't have the stamina and strength to withstand that weight loss, then you are putting yourself further into a state of imbalance. And so these are some of those, like, you know, okay, sorry, y'all, my computer is saying that that's a wrap for that's a wrap for today. I don't even remember where I left off. I got a little frustrated in that moment there, but I'll open it up to questions again. And if not, I'm going to close this out. Okay, guys, if no questions, if you do come up with anything, you can always email me, you can always text me or whatever, but I always say get a second opinion. And so even if you don't really have a a holistic type person, and some doctors do both, but if you don't have someone and you want to get second opinion about something, maybe it's worth incorporating a consultation with a holistic consultant for second opinions before you do things or have to get unnecessary invasive surgeries for things that you may be able to balance in a different way. But that's all I have for you guys. I thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll be here same time next week.